He didn't understand the rules of the game, and that, according to those who held power, was why he had to disappear. Guy Madison was once carved into the perfect archetype of the American man, tall, handsome, and radiating an air of invincibility. For decades, he embodied heroes who never fell, becoming a masculine icon admired by an entire generation of viewers, yet that radiant image never truly reflected the man behind it. More than half a century later, James Arness, Guy Madison's closest friend, finally broke a lifetime of silence and confirmed the shocking rumors that had trailed Madison for years, from press-fueled claims that he was actually female to stories of coercion that forced him into the hedonistic orbit of Hollywood's elite. Still, the greatest mystery lay elsewhere, in the fact that after the age of 40, women almost completely vanished from Madison's life, disappearing as if erased by an invisible hand to conceal a truth that was never allowed to exist. What James Arness revealed redrew the portrait of Guy Madison not as an undefeated screen god, but as a lonely, suppressed man wounded to his core. James Arness once said that Guy Madison was simply too beautiful, so beautiful that people whispered he must be a woman, and that revelation ignited one of the cruelest chains of speculation Madison ever endured. According to Arness, Madison's face was unrealistically perfect, with symmetrical features, flawless skin, and eyes carrying a deep sadness. Yet that perfection became a flaw in an era dominated by rugged men like John Wayne and Kirk Douglas. His softer appearance marked him as an outlier, and from that difference a poisonous legend was born, claiming that Guy Madison was actually female and had been molded into a male deity through sophisticated studio makeup. Tabloids spun thrilling scripts, alleging the studios had discovered a girl with the right bone structure and crafted her into a product to satisfy America's hunger for a new masculine ideal. Every mundane gesture became evidence, from tears in the makeup room to his avoidance of wild parties and his habit of locking the door while changing. Faced with this malice, Arness laughed it off as ridiculous, but the joke was never harmless, leaving scars on Madison's soul and proving Hollywood's brutality when it could not fully possess someone and instead distorted them into something grotesque. Years later, Arness recalled the most horrific night of Madison's life on the set of The Last Frontier, after more than 20 failed takes when the hot-tempered director lost control, hurled the script at Madison's face, and shouted that he didn't need an actor, only a statue that could stand still. Madison froze under the humiliation, shoulders shaking, and when cut was called he retreated to his trailer, where Arness found him clawing at the foundation on his face, as if trying to tear apart the beauty that had become his cage, repeating over and over that he wanted to act. When a producer later dismissed him with a mocking smile, saying the role needed a weathered face, not one fit for a cereal box, Madison locked himself in his dressing room and cried until dawn while Arness stood guard, terrified his friend might do something reckless. That night shattered not only Madison's confidence as an actor, but also marked the beginning of his private descent into darkness. Arness also revealed that while Madison had many male friends, none were like Rory Calhoun, and in the 1950s, when Hollywood strictly forbade same-sex love, their bond became a quiet refuge. They escaped lavish parties to fish at remote lakes beyond the reach of cameras, but studio moguls noticed, hired private detectives, and delivered cold warnings that a single photograph would end both careers. Forced to protect one another, they staged public romances with starlets, and the pain peaked at a party when Calhoun instinctively reached for Madison's shoulder only for Madison to flinch back in terror, seeing cameras everywhere. That moment marked the death of something inside him, and from then on Madison withdrew, understanding that as long as he remained a public male god, he could never keep the person he loved. When he turned 40, women vanished from his life entirely, not because he lacked feeling, but because he refused to live a lie, choosing isolation over a game he knew he could never win. Behind closed doors, powerful men whispered that Madison didn't understand the rules of the game, and in Hollywood that meant elimination. Arness remembered a night in 1950 when Madison was sent to a smoke-filled room where his beauty was meant to be traded as a luxury dessert for contracts. And when a studio head told him to make important people feel special, Madison calmly replied that he was an actor, not a toy. The next morning, promised projects vanished, good scripts went to more obedient faces, and Madison was pushed into shallow roles meant to break his will. Instead of begging, he chose dignity, a decision Arness said cost him the world, because Hollywood never forgives those who say no. As the industry turned its back, Madison began recording everything in notebooks filled with biting observations about a system that measured human worth and statistics, treated scandals as controlled strikes, and loved only profit. When a reporter stole one of those notebooks and attempted blackmail, the studio paid to destroy the pages and issued Madison a ruthless ultimatum that if he ever wrote again, he would lose more than his career. From that day forward, Madison stopped writing, stripped even of the right to dialogue with himself, and that suffocating silence hardened him into someone cold and withdrawn, preparing quietly for an ending on his own terms. Madison eventually reached a breaking point where he no longer wanted to play the role of a breathing statue, and though posters still showed him as the ideal man, he felt imprisoned by that image. He began sabotaging his performances with weariness and hesitation, hoping to be released, but instead whispers spread that he was washed up, merchandise that could no longer sell tickets. A brief meeting ended his golden era, and as scripts thinned and calls stopped, his personal life fractured further, including the painful end of his marriage to Annette, a love crushed by constant scrutiny, and the impossibility of privacy in a world that consumed them both. Arness later recalled Madison saying that if he stayed, he would die, and so he left for Europe in silence after receiving yet another script he called trash. There, away from Hollywood's glare, he accepted smaller films and colder receptions, but finally gained the freedom to act without being a symbol. That escape saved his soul, not his career, and when he eventually returned, he found his place erased by new faces and harsher rules. Guy Madison's legacy was never about awards or revolutionary performances, but about being the perfect product of a system that valued image over depth. He rose because he fit his time exactly and fell because the time changed, and instead of fighting to remain relevant, he stepped away quietly. In his later years, he lived discreetly, without bitterness or nostalgia, repeating only that he had done his job, choosing to be forgotten as a final form of freedom.